Hi everyone, and welcome back to the BISP podcast. Today I'm joined by the IB coordinator, Mr. Jason Perkins. Let's give him a warm welcome. I have a feeling this is going to be a good discussion. Morning, Mr. Perkins.
Thank you, Chloe. Good morning to you.
How are you feeling today?
I'm very good. Thank you for having me. I feel very privileged and like standing on the shoulder of giants of all those incredible speakers before me. So I've a lot to live up to today. So thank you again.
Well, you're a great speaker, so we're glad to have you here.
Cheers.
I want to ask you first how did you get into education, into this field of work?
I actually kind of like telling this story because like many people, I kind of had a second career and teaching is my second career. Many moons ago, I fell out of school and went into engineering, did electronic engineering at the time in the late 90s. So I followed that pathway. I worked for some big corporations in Ireland at the time. And around year 2000, I took a year off and I went to travel. And at one point in time, I was sitting on a beach in Coogee in Australia thinking, what's my next step? And my innate geekiness reappeared, and my love of history and philosophy and theology and all things weird, wacky and wonderful emerged. And I was like, you know what? I want to go back to study. But then I realized, oh crikey, I'm an adult, so I need to study something that's fit for purpose. Mm-hmm. So I explored education and I was super interested in teaching. I don't know where it came from. I never really felt myself to be a teacher or to be a person of education. So I went with it. I took a risk. I went back to education, did another degree, graduated and went straight to England to teach, which was phenomenal. So I came in quite late. I was a teacher by 31. So it gave me a little bit of scope and horizon. But I went into schools in London, two various different schools. One, in an inner sort of city school, which was challenging. So I gained lots of great experience dealing with behaviour and teaching, learning and standards. And then I moved school to a bit more sort of a faith school, so I was able to learn a different type of ethos. And alongside that, I did my master's in education, so I continued to kind of develop my own skills and strategies as a teacher. So yeah, my pathway into education was diverse. My friends keep telling me actually, when am I ever going to get a real job? Particularly a lot of them think in Thailand, a teacher is someone who kind of lives in a mud hut and teaches kids in the jungle. They're very sort of, in Ireland anyway, they're a bit backward.
There is a stereotype.
Yeah, they're a bit backward in what I do. But then when I say, hey, look at BIS and the campus and the facilities, and they kind of go, oh my goodness. And I think in kind of closing, that was my own perception of international education somewhat as well, actually. I didn't realize what incredible institutions were globally for international education and for teachers like me at the time. So when I got here, I realized not only in BISP, but in Thailand and Southeast Asia regions, it was like amazing schools.
Yeah. So
I'm so happy to eventually found myself here. And yeah, I've been here for 7 years now, so it's been phenomenal.
And would you say each school has taught you different things? That word you mentioned, ethos. Have you become the teacher you are today by going to so many different schools? I'm teaching at so many different schools.
That's a really great question. Yeah, I tell you why, because definitely in all my jobs, in all things I've ever done, I've taken some things with me. For example, right? My summer work, I used to be a board boy in the bookies, so I used to write on the boards. So my handwriting on boards is pretty good. No, but so my handwriting on boards is pretty good. And then obviously in my later years, my 20s, I worked in tech. I was very customer service orientated. So when it comes to the admin of my job, I'm pretty responsive and I like to get emails done and close issues quickly. I like to run on adrenaline and fix problems. So I've actually taken those attributes, for good or for bad, with me into teaching. But ultimately, ethos for me is about learning from each school, about the type of school that I would like to be part of. So I really enjoy schools that have, teaching at the very heart and learners at the very heart. That's the service I want to provide as a teacher. I really want to serve students, make them feel valued, and ultimately make them successful, like a product, an outcome. So I've kind of taken lots of my previous jobs into me, And so my ethos is somebody who wants really like high expectations, and I want of quality in what I do,
I
in the
see.
best interest of students.
I see. It seems like you've been around a lot, but how did you find yourself in the IB coordinator position?
Having spent some time in the UK and getting wind of schools across the world, I found myself in Bangkok, and I worked in an international school in Bangkok for 3 years. And part of that journey was I was sort of interested in, leadership and ultimately the IB curriculum, and I applied for the role as IB coordinator in Bangkok. So I served as IB coordinator for about 2 years there, and then I came down here, and after a couple of years of being non-IB coordinating, I was lucky enough to get the post in my second year here. So yeah, IB coordination kind of fell my way through incredible opportunities, and obviously a willingness on the staff here and the senior leadership staff to take a risk on me. So I've been IB coordinator here for almost 4 years now. So I love it. Like, I really love it. It's a phenomenal job, and it's a job that I've learned so much from in the last couple of years, from students, from staff. And like, I'm learning all the time, every day, new things about learning, about education, about relationships. I've been really educated by other members of staff to think differently, to behave differently, to welcome diverse ideas. So for me, it's a wonderful dynamic space. And maybe that's just my perspective, but I'm learning so much, and I feel like that I'm around people and networking with people within the school that's adding something to my value as a teacher and a learner all the time. So I love IB coordinating.
Would you say that's one of the things that has been so rewarding, is learning from other people, maybe how to do the job, how to approach the job, would you say?
Yeah, definitely. Look, when you start as a teacher, like if you go back to what I said, sitting on the beach in Coogee, I didn't really have a kind of an understanding of what it meant to be a teacher. I was focused on, I want to go back and learn history, to teach history. So I was very focused on being a good teacher of knowledge, right? A good storyteller per se. But actually, as you navigate your career to teaching, your horizons open, and you realise that you need to equip yourself with far more important skills and attributes, dealing with behaviour, helping teachers improve in their own teaching, and self-development, of course, as well. Look, we've got incredible staff here who have an incredible abundance of skills and experiences. So I thrive off of staff like that, Mr. Donovan provides me loads of insight into emotional regulation, management, mind management. Miss Godfrey talks to me about language and dealing with the responses and needs of students. Miss Casey has been an incredible influence in terms of me understanding the nature and difficulties and really the opportunities that come with university advising. So I'm in a bit of a mix of kids I say, teaching kids that we're all learning all the time, and we thrive off each other. So yeah, and of course I've learned a lot from other staff in the mix as well. So yeah, look, teaching can be a bit of a silo sometimes. You can feel quite lonely. But once you start connecting to people and inviting yourself into thinking about what they're doing, you become a better learner for it. And I feel like, yeah, I've really enjoyed that aspect of teaching. But you've had to go there. It's easy to kind of, like any clerk or person working in an office, you can kind of stay quite siloed and aim to be a brilliant curriculum and subject teacher. But actually, it's encouraging to see the best of others around you and to bring that into you. So I really like that idea.
And bringing the focus back to IB specifically, what makes IB so different here at our school compared to other schools that support the course?
Okay. Well, look, let's be honest, the IB curriculum is the gold standard, really, for me, in terms of curriculums around the world. There are many incredibly demanding pre-university programs, but if you look at from an international context, the IB Diploma curriculum in particular is probably the gold standard. So when I look at within our school what makes it special and of quality, like we've got teachers who are here a long time teaching the IB curriculum. They have vast experience in the classroom and as examiners. So we've got really high quality teaching across multiple disciplines, which is really, really important for our curriculum. Okay. And then if I resonate and switch to the students. You know, their behaviour and learning behaviour, although it's been significantly disrupted in the last couple of years for obvious reasons, is really positive. You know, we've got a space that students want to learn. And yeah, there's fatigue at times, and there's lapses in want and desire and
Motivation.
ambition. Yeah, of course. The world is complex. But on the whole, there's a real desire to be successful in whatever form that is. So for many students, the IB supports that. And then lastly, I suppose if you look at the IB curriculum here, there's significant positive influence from the community. You know, the Thai community within the school want their students to be successful. They want them to be a particular type of person too, which is important in the IB curriculum. They want to be knowledgeable, but they want them to be compassionate. So if you think about how our parent community want a particular type of son or daughter, they want them to be brave and courageous. They want them to be knowledgeable. They want them to be principled. So we can buy into that with the curriculum. With another particular curriculum, maybe we'll be more focused on results and orientated towards just grades only, which we are. There's no doubt about it.
No.
That's part of, you know,
it does come down to the points at the end of the day.
For many students, absolutely does. But you want a little bit more from your education experience, that journey.
Definitely.
And we give a lot. So the IB allows us, the IB curriculum allows students to do a lot more for our community. So actually, it's a kind of a very responsible curriculum. And that's one thing that I really love about it. But I cannot forget, and I want to really emphasize, it is a highly academic curriculum. You know, and that's very often what people forget. It's rich in academics.
And there's a broad reach as well. You don't narrow down too much. You're still juggling 6 subjects, the TOK, the CAS and the extended essay in addition to that. So you're really at the circus trying to juggle all of these things, but out of that you gain a lot of skills in being able to handle so much at one time. It can really help you grow as a person.
I hope so. I hope so. Like, that is the kind of the idealism behind it all, right? You have this academic philosophy. We want you to be knowledgeable. We want you to be academically successful and prepared and ready for whatever comes. But actually, at its heart, you're learning a lot of competencies and skills that will help you as a young person navigate the weird, wacky, wonderful world that is. That's not easy. And that requires a lot of relationship building. So the curriculum allows for that. It's not always positive. It's like a good honeymoon. It goes up and down at times. But actually, if you embrace what the curriculum offers and with an open mind and curiosity, with a vision of what you want to do, which is always hard for a young person, it can serve you very, very well in wherever you go, whether it's university or the working world, or if you just need to experience time out. At least you've got some skills of reflection, of as I say, curiosity is really important. They are interested in things and people. Yeah, so at its heart, the curriculum serves young people, and for the better for all, I think. It's very idealistic, but that is the very nature of the curriculum.
And would you say the curriculum's always been the same, or has it changed over the years that you've been the IB coordinator here at BISP?
I think as I suppose the change in cohorts emerged from 11 and 12, we've been always super flexible with making the curriculum best fit the year group. And as a result, we've included new subjects or indeed pushed some subjects out. As STEM has really kind of caught fire in our school in terms of the tech aspect.
And just for our listeners, could you tell us what STEM is, what it stands for?
Oh, well, we have science, technology, art, and design as well. So all these disciplines come together to create a kind of an ECA program, or indeed an enrichment program. So these tech attributes within the school have emerged within the curriculum. So we do computer science now. So a lot of our students are coding, and indeed a lot of students are now interested in careers outside of what previously were important a couple of years ago. So let's say a couple of years ago, if I go back 4 years ago, a lot of our students were very business bio kind of interested, right? Business and biology. Whereas the cohort today are more psychology, economics, computer science. So as the needs of the economies are changing perhaps, or just the aspirations of our learners, we've changed the curriculum. But at its very heart, we're still working towards creating a particular type of learner with a particular individualized success.
And taking things up a notch, what are the most exciting parts for you in the IB curriculum?
Tricky question. Obviously
There's so
assessment.
much.
Assessment is a really important part of it. So I love when kids have incredible, successful assessment experiences, whether it's the low stakes stuff in class, a cheeky Kahoot,
Yeah.
or getting that award at the end of year 13 in July when they open up their webpage and see their grades. So assessment is important, and for many it's the most important thing, but for me it's not. What I want to see, because of the various type of learners that we see, I want them to be embracing all aspects of learning. I want them to be enjoying their subjects, but also challenged. I don't want things to be easy. There's a little bit of tough love here. I want them to experience growth, intellectual growth, cognitive growth, spiritual growth. So I want, as they navigate through the curriculum, I want them changing and adapting. And I want them to be in a position, I hope, this is really idealistic and I love this, that when they get to the end of year 13, that they're solving problems for themselves or from others, and they're looking at how the curriculum can enable them to do that in university or beyond. So when I look at the journey of the curriculum, it's quite simplistic, right? In the start of year 12, we're just getting them connecting with each other, this new body of students, finding their way, new uniforms. We want them to click a little bit, to gel. So that journey is pretty easy, and it mirrors like university, right? You want to settle quickly, and then you want to experience the subjects. So the first few weeks are about settling in, and then you want then you want students to embrace the academic rigor. So by September, that's really important. So you want kids successfully learning, enjoying the spaces, contributing to lessons. Their behavioural learning is positive. So that's one part of the journey. And then by December, they have a milestone. They have kind of a grade, an indicator of performance. So that's an important part of then looking ahead, university. And then from December to June, the stakes start to rise a bit in terms of the demand of the academics, the curriculum. So term 2, we've got that. Okay, the first early signs of language like coursework, transcripts, universities, and then think about like your world now, the reality that 13s are leaving, and we begin to create more influence in the school as young leaders and as year 12 students. So you got that part of the journey, and then clearly we've got this kind of meaty section at the end of term 3 of year 12 where you've got like exams, and yeah, it's heavy loaded, but it's been kind of going like that, right? And then really you need that challenge at the end of year 12, because term 1 of year 13 is a really important part of the journey through IB and through senior school. Term 1 of year 13, there's a lot at stake. There's a lot to do. You need to have energy, commitment, a real clear vision about what you're about as a person, but also what's all this for? Start with the why. Why am I doing this? Where am I going? And those kind of eclectic and existential questions start to creep in. Where am I going now? Who am I? Where am I going after school?
What next?
Yeah, so there's a lot of worrying in this journey, but actually, thankfully, by December of year 13, there's a kind of a close to that experience. And then honestly, and you'll see this, and so our students will see this, then from December to April, it's like so quick. You're in and you're gone, and obviously year 13s are leaving on the April 8th this week, and I'm sure if they were to look back at the journey, they might resonate it being very different, but yeah, life goes super quick as an IB student, but it's an uphill then downhill kind of thing.
It tests your character strengths. And speaking of character strengths, we really like to talk about the notion of the IB learner profile attributes. Could you give us a brief overview of what they are?
Yeah, the learner profiles are kind of sometimes an underlying mystery of the program that probably at times we need to really articulate the value of them more so than before. Often as a school like us, we talk about character strengths or colours and e-colours. So very often the learner profile can be overlooked, but it's a core element of the program. And if you think about what it is in its most basic level, it's really the IB's mission to create a particular type of student. What's that student? Well, somebody active, somebody compassionate, and a student that's interested in lifelong learning. So when we look at our curriculum, at the very heart, we don't want, and I have to apologise if I say this, we don't want students who are like rock star sevens in everything. Like, we want academically successful students, but we also want a particular type of learner. Like, we want them caring, we want them balanced, we want them reflective. You know, we also want them really knowledgeable. So the learner profiles is a desire within the curriculum to create that learner. So what does that look like? Well, you mentioned CAS. So CAS is tied to the curriculum. So we want people to be compassionate, to go out and, as I said, solve problems, use their skills to contribute to something meaningful, right? The extended essay, which is a part of the curriculum, which develops the researcher attribute. And so does, of course, every other subject. But that aspect of the curriculum is developing probably that attribute more purposefully. So within the learner profile, you've got this real kind of clear intent to create a learner. And there are 10 attributes to that learner profile. Some I've highlighted before. So you're talking about a particular type of learner. Again, a learner that's active, compassionate, and seeking to be a lifelong learner. Yeah.
And taking into account that IB, as you said, it's so up and down, it's constantly throwing challenges at you. Can IB be something for every student? Is it achievable for everybody?
I did say it's a gold standard, so with a gold standard there's a challenge, right? To be of quality, there has to be certain standards, okay? So there's no doubt in my mind every pre-university program has a challenge. But I personally believe the IB program is for everybody. I'm very open-minded about when students come in year 12, they might have had different successes through maybe Key Stage 4 or MYP or another particular curriculum, that they start in the IB program, and it can satisfy their needs in terms of being a successful learner, or it can match their desires to be a student athlete. So the IB program, despite maybe the fact that it seems like a fixed curriculum, it's very flexible, and we can manipulate it to suit the particular interests and needs and desires of an ambition really of any particular student. So yeah, I believe it's totally open to all.
Do you think some people may need the support and the guidance during the IB more than others to just help them achieve their goals?
I think every student needs a little bit of support along the way. As I said, there's a lot at stake at times. There's pressure points. Year 13, term 1, the university process is tricky. If you look at student athletes, they have to navigate an incredible amount of commitment to sport and to the academic part of their life here. And then you've got students who are boarders, who are far from home, and they have to deal with that sort of experience of being kind of isolated, particularly, again, during a difficult couple of years. So everybody kind of needs support, but there's a real wraparound in the school, I hope, in the sense we've lots of people watching, monitoring, supporting, coaching, mentoring. We're trying to equip, obviously, students with personal skills to self-solve things during well-being, but also to regulate and normalize difficult situations within their own language. So there's lots of support needed, but ultimately we want students to realize that the normal senior school cycle is ups and downs, and it's kind of goes like that. And each student will have a particular unique experience, but there's lots of support within the school. And remember, as a school, we look at everybody from a case-by-case individual basis, So there's no one sort of solution fits all. I personally love talking to students all the time. As you can probably establish, I like to gab a lot, like to talk a lot. So I'm forever having those chit-chats, checking in as best I can. Our policy here is doors are open, always being an open place for talking about things with an open mind, with a curiosity, and without solving the problem. We want to coach kids to look at their own situation and find their own problems at times. So there's a lot of support, both in the corridor, in the classroom, in the tutor program, and obviously within the very faculties across the school, including boarding and the coaches as well. The coaches do a lot of work as well.
So there's a large element of, perseverance and robustness, if you like, about the IB. So do you mean to say we don't need to come in with, all of our eggs in one basket? We don't need to have the perfect foundation. We just need to have that mentality of perseverance in order to succeed?
Yeah, I think if you transition from year 11 to year 12, there's an actual kind of worry or concern. What is this new curriculum going to be like? I hear it's really hard. I have to write more essays. There's a kind of a gentle nervousness and an anxiety, and that's normal. But it does settle. And think about how good that experience is for that student when they navigate life into university in a couple of years' time, when they're going to go through it again. So it's kind of a normal liminal experience or threshold moment in a young person's life to get into a new year group and to kind of find their way a little bit. But it settles, and it settles, you hope, with the best intentions of the student in mind, that they've got a clear intention as best they can from the support of their families, their friends, and the school community, that we're all investing in them. And despite the challenges, you know what I mean, it is tricky. It's not about that. For me, and I say it all the time, there's a light at the end of the tunnel. It always works out. And I'm really positive in that framing. Like, it's normal to have your good days and your bad days. It's normal to feel fatigue. It's normal to kind of feel like, oh my God, is this all worth it? But when you finish, as our year 13s are finished in April, there's a sense of achievement. And that's so important for young people to have a sense of fulfillment, that they've set out what they've achieved. They've set out something and they've achieved it. And they're ready for the next step. And that's why I think it's a really wonderful thing being part of this particular place in the school, that I get to see that and observe it and coax it along the way. So yeah, it's a really important part of school.
I think one thing that we really value at BISP, and more often in the world now, is balance. And especially for students and teachers alike, keeping a balance between your personal life and maybe your health and your academics. How would you advise an IB student to keep a balanced lifestyle?
Yeah, it's interesting. We think balance like that, but it's okay to balance like that if you can manage it, but it takes an incredible amount of energy to do that, all right? I don't think there's a magic wand for this. I certainly think if you want to balance things, you've got to be able to be a bit more open-minded about the difficulties you face and the challenges you face as a learner, as a student, as a young person in the world. I think to overcome the challenges that you face, and as you said, a bit like in juggling things, I think you got to talk. Like, you got to be able to communicate where you are with people, have trusted friends, trust in adults is really important. Talk to people, find a critical friend that you need to say, look, this is what I'm struggling with. This is where I can't seem to find an outcome that's positive in my mindset, or I don't seem to get the grades I want, or my swim time is not improving, it's impacting my life. So balancing your life as a student, BSP, kind of asks something of you, that's to be open-minded and seek help. Of course, you have to regulate your own behaviour as well. Back to basic stuff, do you have a planner? Do you have an effective study plan strategy? Are you able to manage that? And if you don't, talk to staff, talk to myself, talk to your tutors, talk to your teachers, trust in the adults. And then balancing the mindset and the emotional regulations is really important to be open-minded here. It's not easy to teach a 16/17-year-old about chimp management, emotional regulation, but actually being open-minded, it's normal to feel overwhelmed, and it's normal to feel stressed. It's a kind of a healthy challenge. I have to be careful what I mean by healthy. In life there are incredible challenges, so it's important to embrace them with a sense of purpose. So balancing all this requires not only a sort of review of one's strengths, but actually review of what others can bring to you and helping you lift that. So if you think about one person balancing, it's probably a bit easier if you spread the load and have two people. That second person can be a confidant, a friend, a teacher, an adult. So yeah, as a young person, spread the challenges that you face, and that balance becomes a bit more purposeful.
So do you mean to say that if we have a good support around us, then we can establish balance by learning from other people or maybe engaging in activities that they like. Is that what you mean to say?
Yeah, like, look, if you think about the most successful athletes, right? They don't do it alone. There's people fine-tuning everything in and around, or indeed actors and actresses, right? There's people working around and managing their diet, their nutrition, their sleep, their daily routine. You know, a student who has aspirations and big goals, whether they're academic or sporting or just simply life goals, you kind of need to rely on others to help you get there. So it's quite natural for you to want to rebel against that, though. But I would encourage a student who's open-minded to seek support and to seek others who can help you manage difficult situations, not solve them for you or take them off you. You've got to navigate that yourself, or else we're de-skilling you, right? But don't be afraid to kind of knock on doors or send an SOS signal to someone to say, look, I need help with this, or you're someone I can talk to, how can I tease this out so it works for me? And again, I'm not just talking about learning, I'm talking about coaching a football, or you feel like you're not making the first 11 of the football team, or your swim times have slowed down, or your artwork is not up to scratch, or your theatre performances are sliding a little bit. Like, everything kind of pulls at you a little bit as a student. And to manage that, I go back to that simple image, it's very difficult, no matter how incredible you are as a student, to do that on your own. So find a trusted confidant and get people in and around you. It's really important.
And can I ask you, if you were in that situation where a student came to you and they just said that they felt maybe overloaded and that they needed something to balance things out and manage their stress, what would be your advice to them or approach to help them manage it?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. And it's something that I have to reflect on all the time. Not that I have these conversations every day, but sometimes for me, I've got to make sure that I've done the right thing by the students. I'm deeply reflective in these conversations. They're kind of things that, I won't say keep you awake at night, but they're the last things sometimes I think of at night. So it sticks with me. So conversations with students, whether purposeful or emotional, are really important to me in my role. And as a result, I've got to make sure I'm not shooting from the hip and just saying what I want to say. So typically I'll go through a kind of a coaching model. So I'll use a kind of a grow coaching model with talking to a student, where I won't give my answer, I won't give my solution, I won't wave the magic wand, I won't remove things that are causing the problems. We'll tease it out. We'll seek to understand what is the ideal situation that the student is seeking to achieve. I'll establish the goals of that student. So if they're struggling in a particular subject, what is the goal and what do they want to do? What is the reality of the situation? What have they tried? What are the opportunities? So we'll tease it out a little bit. And it might be in one conversation, it might be a series of conversations, but a bit like sort of kneading bread, we'll play with it for a while. And we'll come back to it if necessary, and we'll rumble with it, and then hopefully the student has a sense of ownership. So it's not me self-solving the problem whatsoever. It's totally about relationship building. And indeed, I'll obviously need the support of additional staff as well. Again, whether it's a social, emotional, or simply a tutor or a teacher. So, but bring in the resources where necessary. But no, it's not me solving the problem. It's me working with the student, working with others, using a kind of a systematic process of understanding how the student can self-solve and normalise the problem in a way that they feel that they're in control. So it's quite systematic, yeah.
And how perhaps do you, if you've identified your goals, it's necessary to think of the strategies that you're going to use to achieve them. Is that up to the students to do, or should they ask teachers for help?
Different strategies, but my thing is really, you want the student to find their own strategy. And if a student is kind of stuck, I'll invite my strategy in. So I'll literally say, look, hey Chloe, do you mind if I offer you some advice here? And if they say, look, no, I'm okay like this, I'll respect that space. But if obviously they've tried and it hasn't worked for them, or they weren't able to do it in a way that served the problem, I'll again say, hey, look, Chloe, do you mind if I provide you with some sort of solution to this? So it's an invitation only. And it's just part of my strategy, or the strategy that we inherited here with Mr. Stockens many years ago. So I like the grow model of coaching. Others will say that's pretty mean. Would you not just go in and fix it and just alleviate the burden or the challenge or the problem or the error or issue? But you want to empower, not sort of descale, right? So teasing it through creates a better relationship with the student, but empowers them to own the thing that's causing them a stress, and enables the relationship to form, and there's a trust. Right?
And also maybe in the future, when problems reoccur again, then that student may be able to fix the problems themselves or find a solution, because the teachers aren't always going to be there forever. Is that your motive, that they can help themselves in a bad situation?
Yeah, it's like, totally agree. It's, when you go to someone with a problem, they say, hey, you should do this, and you're like, okay, that's your strategy, but you're helping them, and it might seem like you're fixing it, whatever it is, of course, but actually you want to nurture that own capacity to self-solve, right? And that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to say, look, you own this, you know what you want, you've got your solutions there at hand. So like that, you just need to grab them and try it. And if it doesn't work, let's come back again and start again and rework the conversation or the coaching conversation. So it's a powerful tool, okay? And of course, the coaching conversation can be very formal, a bit like this, or it can be that little thing on the corridor. Hey, how's it going? Did you try that? Well done. So it's constant like interaction, little things and big things. But yeah, it's a really important strategy for empowering students to embrace the challenges they have in all different aspects of life, and them to be empowered and to develop the experience for whatever's to come later on. Yeah, I think it's a really important part of learning, actually.
And I'd just like to draw the attention of the listeners to what you said. So if you're having a problem, and be it anything, as Mr. Perkins said, it's really important to just go to those who you find are supportive and ask them for advice or help or encouragement, and just take whatever you can from that, because ultimately we learn a lot from each other. And when we open ourselves to the wider world, we can get things and really help ourselves and others.
Yeah. And we do it as staff all the time. Like, don't get me wrong, it's like, we all have our challenges, whether it's time or management of things. And I'll knock on Miss Amber's door next door and say, look, can I just bounce something off you? Or I'm forever with Miss Casey, and likewise, we've got a great relationship, and that we'll tease things through, like real, sort of, it's good to have that kind of critical friend. And I like that concept.
And going back to the IB program again, it's something that can prepare us for life, but in a shorter context, how does it help us prepare for university?
That's a good question. Obviously, the literature will say lots of wonderful things. The admissions departments of universities really embrace IB learners because of all the attributes they develop within the curriculum: knowledgeable, caring, reflective, etc., researcher. So that learner profile attribute blends itself well into universities. But actually, the best evidence that I have to suggest preparation is when our students return, when they used to return pre-COVID days, they would talk about how ready they felt in university. Ready to embrace the subject that they're studying, or ready to embrace the student-athlete experience that they've kind of migrated to. But even their ability to connect to others. So very often, we're truly international here, so that's kind of framed up pretty well. So when our students go wherever they go all over the world, they're really happy to say, look, I don't want to stick just with the international community in the university. I'm going to get out there. So they're more open-minded, a bit more liberal perhaps, because they've been part of a rich, sort of diverse experience here. Now, so that type of thing is just as important as the results, that students come back with a sense of, I fitted in, I'm enjoying life, I'm part of the societies, I set up my own club. Or a couple of students are like, I'm leading and part of the leadership team of a particular society. They're great, really, sort of experiences that give me more joy than somebody saying, I've got a 1-1 in law. Like, that's cool. You were always going to get that, right? You're that particular student because you're genius, fabulous. But actually that you're part of a community, And if you think about what universities want, a bit like us, we want a bit of everything, a sprinkle of everything. So when you see our students going into the very diverse universities they're entering, and they're part of that community, and they're prepared for that academically, but emotionally and socially and interpersonally, like, that's class. I love that. So they're enjoying their university life, and as a result, they're embracing what that offers, and that's really important for me. So I love to hear those accounts. They're the great successes.
Would you say that's your favorite, the ability to mingle, as we say, and just be comfortable in any environment, any kind of people?
Yeah, look, if you go back to, the learner profile strengths, and if you ask me which is the most important, I think open-minded, right?
Okay.
I probably could add caring into that as well. Look how incredible the world would be if we were more open-minded and we prepared to listen without opinion and judge without critique, and value others regardless of colour, creed or religion, gender, ethnicity, etc., orientation. Just to be a bit more open-minded, the world probably be a bit more safer for all. So when students embrace that kind of attribute here, and it manifests in something more purposeful beyond life in BISP, like, that's what it's all about. Again, success in academics and careers will work out for most kids, the light at the end of the tunnel. But if you're developing a particular person who's compassionate and open-minded and willing to solve problems, as I touched on earlier on, for themselves, for others, I think that's what for me, that's what education is all about.
And to conclude this podcast, I want to pick up on what you said, the world beyond BISP. We're living in this context right now, as it's the Year 13's last week of school, for those listeners who don't know. And can you tell us how it feels on graduation day when you say goodbye to all those kids that you've come to know? Yeah,
I think I keep using this word. I probably need to change it now. I definitely need to change it now. But I use the word bittersweet.
Yes.
Because obviously, think about the coaching conversations I highlighted. Think about what we're trying to do within the curriculum. Like, you're building relationships over 2 years, and it's quick, but it's pretty intense at certain times. So you get to know the good, bad, and ugly of people, and I mean that in a real nice way. You see them at their best, and sometimes you see them at their worst. But then when they're leaving, it's kind of like, I'm kind of glad, because I don't want to hold anybody back, and you want them to have a fruitful life, and you want to go, but there's a part of me that kind of goes, there's a void, and there's a vacuum, and nothing replaces that for a while. So actually, when I come back in August, there's a little part of me that has to process this and readjust to it, and I'm a little bit disorientated, because you spend a lot of time and energy with a group of students that have value to you. And I'm somebody who's I'm a historian, so I remember dates and faces. So I remember the class of 2022, and I'll see all the names. So yeah, it's bittersweet. Like, I will miss them fondly, and I really mean that. And I love them to bits. They're a great bunch. But I'm also looking forward to their stories and their life narrative and hearing the things that they do. So that's the bittersweet context. And I just hope that they've created meaningful friendships, so when they go to their meaningful friendships here, so when they go to the new locations, that they've always got that feeling of home and connection with their friendships, but more importantly, the connection with the school. And we're very accommodating, and we always embrace the students, and we welcome them back, so they're always welcome here. So things don't end, they just take time to go their separate ways. So so we'll miss them.
And my last question would be, how would you like the Year 13s to remember BISP, this beautiful school of ours?
I don't want them to be remembered as the COVID kids.
No, don't mention that word.
But they do. They use it. We're the COVID kids, bless them. They've missed out so many opportunities. No GCSE exams. Remember, 2 years of disruptions in terms of their life. I know. Right?
I was one of the cohorts that didn't do their exams.
A lot of student athletes didn't get to have their big high points of their time here. They've had to be incredible patience. So it's hard. I don't want to label them, but they've showed incredible resilience and grit and determination. And I will remember them fondly for that. I remember that they've had to be incredibly patient with this process. And that is an incredible skill for a young person to learn. So I know that might seem quite simple, but for me it's important that they've not kicked out, they've not caused a fuss, they've embraced what challenges have been in front of them and accommodated and adjusted and been patient. So they're incredible, to be honest, and their parents should be really, really proud of them in terms of what they've had to navigate in the last few weeks. So they'll be fondly remembered for that ability to sail a real disruptive experience. And again, they're nearly finished, so I hope they'll achieve everything they've dreamt of.
Thank you for your time today, Mr. Perkins. We had a lovely discussion, and I think I learned something about you and also about the IB curriculum that we're going through right now. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Chloe. Thank you for having me, and thank you for listening, everyone.
Yes. So in conclusion, everybody, the IB really provides us with something to nurture our skills in perseverance, caring, thinking. It is a really broad course that can really prepare us for the world around us and the life beyond BISP or our schools. So remember that there is always light at the end of the tunnel. There is always people to talk to if you're having a problem. And ultimately, it's all about making the most of our experience here on this earth. So make the most of every experience, everybody. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time. Bye for now.